My story is, sadly typical. The priest who molested me first, of course, befriended my parents and then my siblings as well. He molested 4 of the 5 boys in our family, and one of my younger brothers, who was abused, went on to become a priest and went on to molest kids himself.
David Clossie was the national director for SNAP, the survivors network of those abused by priests. As a grown-up, he tried to sue, but his lawsuit was tossed, based on Missouri's statute of limitation.
The good news is that my predator was publicly exposed because I sued, so he's not currently working as a priest, as best we can tell, but nor has he been kicked out of the church either.
In California, we also have a statute of limitation which prevents many people from suing for damages for childhood sexual abuse. But the Sacramento Catholic Diocese announced the creation of a victim compensation program that's independent, where people who were abused by priests can apply and, if approved, will receive some kind of financial compensation regardless of when the abuse happened. This comes after the diocese released the names of 46 clergy members accused of sexual abuse. The fund will include 6 California dioceses and will be managed by Ken Feinberg, an attorney known as the Compensation Czar. He's handled compassionate claims for victims of 9/11, of multiple mass shootings, and victims of clergy abuse in New York, Philadelphia, and Colorado. That all sounds great, but there are concerns over what this fund really represents.
What the fund does is it changes the entire focus away from who committed abuse, who concealed abuse, onto how are we going to divvy up some money.
I talked to Mike Reck, who has represented victims of clergy abuse across the country, many who have received compensation from similar funds. What's the difference between this and a civil lawsuit that a survivor would present against the church?
The information really only flows one way. They may get an acknowledgement, which is a good first step in healing, but there's no true transparency as to who the claims were filed against, what they are settled for, or how church officials failed those survivors back when they were children, because it's not subject to the same disclosures and the same oversight that court proceedings are.
So what you're saying is the survivor talks about the abuse, discloses that to this independent party. They might get a financial acknowledgement that the abuse happened, but they have no idea how the cover-up took place, where the priest went, if it went to a different diocese, etc.
Exactly.
Is the amount that's usually granted to survivors through this fund comparable to what they would get in a settlement?
If the case were in litigation, it's traditionally much lower than what survivors would be receiving through a court lawsuit.
In this agreement we obtained from a similar compensation fund in New York, the claimant releases and forever discharges the archdiocese and everyone in it, from all claims, demands, actions, causes of action, suits, etc. But for those excluded by the statute of limitation, this may be the only option for compensation.
It may be a better option right now because of that statute of limitation. However, one of the nuances that is very, very important for survivors to know before they forever give up their rights is that there are sometimes ways around that statute of limitation based on fundamental fairness. And the legislature right here in California is taking up that very issue, and it may change in a matter of months.
In 2013, the California legislature passed a bill eliminating the statute of limitations to file for damages for childhood sexual abuse. Governor Brown vetoed the bill. Last year, Assemblymember Lorena Gonzalez introduced a very similar bill. Again, it passed, and again, Governor Brown vetoed it. This year, she brought it back. Under Governor Newsom, supporters are hopeful it will finally become a law. If the law passes, they're not going to be able to sue in the future.
That's exactly correct. It's a very calculated, very shrewd act on behalf of church officials to their benefit. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't survivors who this might be a good fit for this program. But the major concern for advocates is all of the survivors who don't know about their rights, who don't know about the potential change in the statute of limitations, may forever give up those rights before they even know that they're going to have them.
Currently, in California, victims can only sue for childhood sexual abuse until they turn 26. The Gonzalez bill would expand that window to allow people to file a claim until they turn 40, opening the door for more victims to sue the church, that is, unless they've signed away their rights by taking the church's victim compensation.